Imagine you're at the airport.
Okay, I'm there.
You're standing at the baggage drop, and you look over at the person in the line right next to you, and they are clearly struggling.
Oh, yeah. We've all seen that.
Right. They have this massive, incredibly overstuffed suitcase. The zipper is practically bursting. They're sweating. They can barely lift the thing onto the scale.
It looks miserable.
It does. And your natural instinct, I mean, especially if you care about that person, is to reach over and just offer a hand.
Of course.
It's just the most human impulse in the world, to want to lighten someone else's load. But what if the laws of physics suddenly shifted and your hands just phased right through their luggage?
Oh, wow. That is a wild image.
Right. What if, fundamentally, it was physically impossible for you to carry a single ounce of their burden, no matter how desperately you want it to?
I mean, that completely disrupts our entire understanding of empathy. We operate on this assumption that we can intervene, that we can physically or emotionally shield the people we care about from the heavy weight they're carrying through life. So taking away that ability feels almost alien.
It really does. And that invisible, completely unchangeable baggage is actually the perfect entry point for the text we're looking at today.
It really is.
So welcome to the deep dive. We are so thrilled to have you with us because today's mission is a truly fascinating one. We are unpacking a deeply philosophical, highly specific, and honestly somewhat provocative text by an author named Su Feng.
Yeah, and it's titled, No One Can Alter Another's Karma.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, we should probably set some ground rules first for how this text uses its terminology.
Good idea.
Because when we hear the word karma today, it's usually thrown around as, like, a casual joke. Someone cuts you off in traffic, they get a flat tire a mile down the road, and we laugh and call it karma.
Right, like a cosmic payback system.
Exactly.
Huh.
But the source material we're looking at today takes a much more rigorous, absolute approach to the concept.
Yeah, Su Feng defines karma not as some mystical retribution for cutting in line, but as your entire life trajectory. He actually spells that out in all capital letters in the text.
Right. Life in all caps.
Yeah. It's the totality of everything you encounter on your journey from birth to death. Every single joy, every sorrow, every financial gain, and every devastating loss.
It's the whole structural framework of your existence.
Totally. And his central thesis is just absolute. No one, not even the gods, can carry or change your karmic baggage.
What's fascinating here is that this rule applies universally, without a single exception. It establishes a set of strict, impenetrable boundaries around the individual soul.
Impenetrable is the perfect word.
Yeah, I mean, it entirely removes the romanticized notion of a savior. The idea that someone can swoop in, pay off your spiritual debts, and rescue you from the consequences of your own life, that is completely dismantled here.
Gone.
And to help us understand the gravity of this, the author starts at the most intimate, micro level of human experience.
Which is the physical body. He uses this incredibly vivid, relatable example of a stomach ache.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a horrible stomach ache, no one else can suffer it for you. Even your absolute dearest loved one, like a spouse, a partner, someone who would gladly take a bullet to keep you safe, they cannot magically transfer your physical pain into their own nervous system.
Right. You are entirely isolated in that physical experience.
Yeah.
And that biological isolation acts as a mirror for our spiritual and karmic isolation. The text explicitly extends this uncrossable boundary to all of our most fundamental human relationships.
Which is pretty intense when you think about it.
It is. He says parents, despite their deepest biological instincts to protect and pave the way for their kids, they cannot alter the karma of their children. And children cannot change the karma of their parents.
Which is such a hard pill to swallow. I mean, as a parent, your entire job description is essentially trying to alter your kid's trajectory for the better.
Exactly.
You literally spend your life trying to save them from making your mistakes.
It definitely challenges our core familial instincts. But the author pushes the concept even further into the realm of spiritual instruction.
Oh, right.
He states that a teacher cannot change the karma of a student, and a spiritual master cannot change the karma of a disciple.
Right. So the relationship might exist to provide information or, like, point out a path.
But the actual transformation, the actual weight of walking that path, belongs solely to the individual.
Yeah. And then Su Feng takes this rule and scales it all the way up to the cosmic level. He argues that even gods, Buddhas, celestial beings, and saints are entirely forbidden from interfering with human karma.
Which is a huge claim.
It is, and he explains exactly why this has to be the case. He says if divine beings could just reach down and alter your karma on a whim, the heavenly laws and the fairness, harmony, and legitimacy of the Tao would be rendered completely meaningless.
Well, think about the underlying logic of a functioning universe.
Right.
If you have a reality governed by cause and effect, where actions require specific, necessary reactions to facilitate growth or maintain cosmic balance, a deity stepping in to wipe away the consequence would fundamentally break the system.
Right, it ruins the math.
Exactly. The Tao, which represents the fundamental nature or the underlying mechanism of the universe, relies on absolute, impartial consistency.
Impartial being the key word.
Yes. If exceptions can be made simply because someone prayed hard enough or because a god felt pity for a human, then it's no longer a universal law. It just devolves into a system of favoritism.
I want to introduce an analogy here because reading through these rules, it honestly reminded me of going to the gym.
Oh, I like this.
Yeah, because you cannot hire someone to do push-ups for you.
Definitely not.
You can hire a trainer to show you the proper form, to yell at you to keep going, maybe to write out the optimal routine. But if you want the muscle, you have to tear your own muscle fibers. You have to lift the heavy weight yourself.
That is so true.
The physical reality simply doesn't allow someone else to eat a healthy meal on your behalf and have you reap the nutritional benefits.
That gym analogy is perfect because it really highlights the biological reality of this text. It views karma almost like a spiritual metabolism.
A spiritual metabolism, wow.
Yeah, you have to personally digest your own experiences to extract the necessary soul-level nutrients. Someone else chewing your food doesn't nourish you.
That is gross, but very accurate.
Very accurate.
But here's where the text gets really challenging and where I actually want to push back a little on the author's logic.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because karma is absolute, Xuefeng states that complaining and resentment are not just useless, they actually deepen the weight of your karma.
Right.
He says you shouldn't blame the greatest creator, the gods, or other people for your hardships. But wait, if complaining deepens our karma, aren't we trapped in a cycle where simply recognizing and expressing our pain actually makes the pain worse?
I get that. It sounds like a trap at first glance.
Right.
But within the framework of his philosophy, the mechanism makes a lot of sense. It really all comes down to ultimate personal accountability versus resistance.
Okay, how so?
When you complain, you are fundamentally resisting reality. You're putting your energy into the thought, this shouldn't be happening to me.
Which we all do.
We all do it.
Yeah.
But the karma, the stomachache, the financial ruin, the heartbreak is already happening. It's your current reality. By blaming an external force, you are refusing to actively process the experience.
Ah, so you're fighting the current instead of learning how to swim out of it.
Yes, beautifully put. Accepting the karma, taking absolute ownership of it without resentment, is what aligns you with the Tao. It allows the cause and effect to complete its natural cycle.
So resisting it just stalls the process.
Exactly. Complaining is essentially hitting pause on the download of whatever lesson or consequence that karma holds, ensuring the file stays open on your desktop longer and drags down your whole system.
Right. So we have this massive, abstract philosophical framework about universal laws and spiritual metabolism. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, takes a turn.
Xuefeng doesn't just leave this as some cosmic thought experiment. He writes about a very real, very painful realization regarding his own limitations as a spiritual leader. He basically applies this heavy rule to his own life's work.
The tone of the text changes significantly here. We move from the theoretical mechanics of the universe to a deeply personal application.
Yeah.
Xuefeng introduces himself as a guide for life and the soul's journey. He has been leading a specific group of followers known as the Changyuan Celestials.
Right. And his goal for these people isn't just like a sense of inner peace. He's trying to lead them to what he calls the second home, which is supposed to be this utopian paradise manifesting right here in the human world.
Sounds ambitious.
Beyond ambitious. And beyond that, his ultimate destinations for their souls have these incredibly evocative names, like the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, or the Celestial Islands continent of the Elysium world.
And those destinations aren't just poetic metaphors in his teachings, right? They represent specific elevated frequencies of existence.
Right.
To get to the 1,000-year world, for example, a follower can't just memorize a chant. They have to actively purify their soul, drop their earthly attachments, and digest their karmic debts to literally lighten their spiritual frequency.
That's hard work.
Very hard. And he has dedicated over 20 years to this incredibly demanding mission, offering guidance, outlining daily practices, and pointing the way for these celestials.
But then he arrives at this sobering, almost devastating conclusion. After 2 decades of intense daily effort, he realizes he cannot change a single trace of their actual karma.
Yeah, that hit hard.
He can give them the map to the Elysium world, he can show them how to walk, but he cannot carry them across the finish line.
It is the ultimate test of his own philosophy. And he realizes this limitation because of a very specific, historical, inciting incident mentioned in the text.
The 2572 incident.
Exactly. It takes place on July 2, 2025. In the text's internal calendar, he refers to this as the year 2572. On this date, a large number of his Chanuan celestials were unexpectedly arrested and imprisoned.
Wow.
Xuefeng explicitly states, "This was never my wish." I mean, he spent 20 years trying to teach them how to live like immortals, and instead, they're sitting in jail cells.
Right, which proves his point, because if he had the power to alter their karma, he obviously would have prevented those arrests.
Definitely.
But the text provides what he considers undeniable geographical proof of the unstoppable nature of their karma, because not all celestials were arrested on that day in 2572.
Right. There are exceptions.
Yeah, the followers who were living in communities in Canada, Thailand, and Korea were completely unaffected. And Xuefeng clarifies that he didn't strategically orchestrate that. He didn't assign his favorite people to safe zones and the others to danger zones. Every single person made their own free will choices about where to live.
And he notes a critical detail about those choices. Some individuals actually chose to leave the specific communities that ended up being targeted.
They got out.
They got out. They were safe. But then, for whatever personal or logistical reasons, they chose to return.
Ah.
And by returning, they were drawn right back into the inescapable karma of that July 2nd event.
Wait, if they had the free will to move to Canada or Thailand, but they chose to return to a place where they were ultimately arrested, is karma just the sum of our geographical and practical choices, or is it like a magnet pulling us toward our inevitable fate?
That's the big question.
Did they simply walk into a bad situation, or did the karma drag them back?
That tension is the absolute core of his argument. In Xuefeng's view, free will and karma are intimately, almost paradoxically, linked.
How so?
You have the absolute free will to make choices, but your choices are the very mechanism through which your underlying karma is fulfilled.
Oh.
Right. No external force, not the authorities, not Xuefeng's teachings, not a border crossing, could override the internal karmic magnet pulling those specific individuals back to face the 2572 incident.
Their free will was the vehicle that delivered them to their inevitable karmic destination.
It's like they were tied to a giant bungee cord. They could walk as far away as they wanted, maybe even move to a completely different country, but eventually the tension snaps and they are pulled right back to the center of their specific required life trajectory.
I love that.
They had a lesson they were required to download, and they just couldn't avoid the Wi-Fi zone.
That bungee cord visual is a great way to think about it. And after seeing how this absolute rule applies to his specific modern group, the author scales his argument up again.
Right.
He looks backward into history, examining divine precedents to see if anyone has ever successfully broken this rule.
And he brings up two of the most recognized spiritual figures in human history, Jesus and Buddha.
The text argues that if gods or divine masters could actually change human karma, then the disciples of Jesus wouldn't have met such violent, tragic ends.
Exactly.
And if Buddhas could alter the trajectory of their followers, those communities wouldn't have been subjected to repeated, large-scale persecution throughout centuries of history.
The underlying logic is brutal, but it maintains that strict consistency we talked about earlier.
It really does.
If the most revered divine figures in human history couldn't save their most devoted, loyal followers from immense physical suffering, the idea that any ordinary human being, even a spiritual guide like Xuefeng, can alter another's destiny is just sheer arrogance.
Right.
The precedent of non-interference was set by the divine themselves.
But if divine figures couldn't save their followers, it makes you wonder how this karma plays out on an even larger scale. I mean, we're talking about millions of people now. The author moves from historical religious groups to how collective karma shapes modern regimes and global politics.
Okay, so before we get into the heavy mechanics of this political aspect, we really need to make sure we're setting the right context for you, the listener.
Yes, definitely.
We are strictly unpacking Xuefeng's philosophical framework here. We are not endorsing his specific view of world governments or taking a political stance on historical events. Our goal is just to look objectively at how the concept of collective karma operates within his mathematical cause and effect universe.
Exactly, neutral reporting only. So keeping that in mind, how does karma function on a massive national scale?
Right.
Well, the author asserts that tyrants and oppressive regimes don't just magically appear out of a vacuum. They are, in his words, born from the ignorance, blindness, selfishness, and greed of the masses.
That's a heavy claim.
It is. He goes so far as to say that evil regimes are the direct consequence and punishment for the collective desires of the people. He describes this macro dynamic as the subtle and precise arrangement of the Tao.
So what does this all mean when we put it into practice?
Well, I have to push back hard on this because saying a populace earns a tyrant through their own collective selfishness is a massive, incredibly heavy claim.
It is.
Quite frankly, it sounds exactly like victim blaming on a national scale. It feels like saying if a country is starving under a dictator, they somehow spiritually asked for it by being greedy in a past life or in their daily habits.
Yeah, this raises an important question, and it's undoubtedly the most uncomfortable application of his theory. It strips away all of our usual political or economic explanations for global suffering.
Entirely.
But if we analyze it strictly within the source's own closed system, it is mathematically consistent. Remember the absolute boundaries we established with the stomachache.
The idea that no one can digest your physical pain for you.
Right. Just as an individual cannot escape their personal karmic ledger, the text posits that a society cannot escape the mathematical sum of its collective spiritual state.
I see.
If millions of individuals in a society are operating from a place of greed, short-sightedness, or spiritual blindness, accumulating negative personal karma, the aggregate result, the giant collective manifestation of that energy, is a tyrant. The regime is just the mirror reflecting the populace.
So it's essentially a cosmic math equation. Individual selfishness plus individual greed multiplied by millions of people inevitably equals an oppressive regime.
Yes. It's presented purely as a mathematical certainty, entirely devoid of human sentimentality.
Wow.
In this view, a brutal regime isn't a failure of political science or a stroke of bad luck. It is an accurate, precise reflection of the collective karmic bank account. The Tao doesn't deal in pity, and it doesn't care about human politics. It only deals in energetic balancing.
I hear the math, but it is cold. I mean, it removes the human heart from the equation entirely.
It really does.
That is a staggering, almost clinical way to view human history. And that heavy realization of how unchangeable the world really is brings us to the final, fascinating shift in the text. We return to the author, Xu Feng, not as a cosmic philosopher, but as a man in his current emotional state, delivering his final message to the world.
And here's where he stops being a philosopher and just becomes a deeply frustrated human being.
Yeah.
The grand theories fall away, and we're left with the lament of a man who feels he has completely exhausted his life's purpose.
He writes that he has spent over 2 decades screaming from the rooftops, spreading the knowledge of the greatest creator and the fundamental truths of life and the universe. And what is the grand result of all that effort?
Crickets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The public remains largely unmoved. They aren't listening.
He reflects on his massive efforts to bring the second home to fruition. He spent his life essentially trying to manifest a tangible paradise within the human world. And he notes with a profound sense of defeat that people just remain indifferent to it.
It's sad, really.
It is. He has built the sanctuary, he opened the doors, but the masses are walking right past it.
He even mentions that he published a Resisting Evil Regimes series that contains 32 separate, detailed articles. He poured his warnings, his political observations, and his deepest philosophy out onto the internet, hoping to wake people up.
And the reaction?
He describes the online world's reaction as nearly silent. He asks these haunting questions to the reader. What is it that people truly seek? What kind of future do they hope for?
It is the ultimate frustration of the tour guide whose map is being completely ignored.
Right.
He clearly sees the karmic cliff approaching, he's holding up the warning signs, but the collective march of humanity continues right toward the edge. He realizes his shouting won't change their trajectory.
Which culminates in his final resigning thought. It's a sentence that carries so much emotional weight after everything we've discussed today. He simply says, if the suffering, hardship, and sin are not yet complete, then let them run their course.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that final sentence perfectly encapsulates his entire 20-year journey.
Yeah.
If karma fundamentally cannot be altered, if the pain absolutely must be felt to balance the cosmic equation, then attempting to prematurely stop the suffering is not just impossible, It's actually interfering with the necessary workings of the universe. The fire simply has to burn until the fuel is gone.
It's a profound surrender to the absolute law he has spent the whole text outlining. He's finally putting down the heavy suitcase he was trying to carry for everyone else.
Exactly.
Which leaves us with an incredible tension, and it's a tension I want to turn over to you as we wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
If we truly internalize Shui Feng's premise that no one can alter another person's hardship because it is their sacred mathematical karma to bear, does that belief empower us? Does it force us to take ultimate, unflinching responsibility for our own lives, knowing that no savior is coming to do the push-ups for us?
It's a fair question.
Or does it risk making us apathetic? Does the belief that someone's suffering is just their karma running its course give us a convenient philosophical excuse not to reach out and help our neighbors when they are crushed under the weight of the world?
That's the really tricky part.
It is a remarkably fine line between respecting the universe's boundaries and losing our own humanity in the process. The next time you see someone struggling with a heavy bag at the airport, what will you do?
Something to think about.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration. Keep questioning, keep digging, and we will catch you next time.